All right, is everybody ready? Looks like it is 9:31. We'll go ahead and get started. All right. Thank you all for coming out. And we did have just for those that might be listening online, we had a presentation that was canceled. So we're starting at 9:30 rather than 8:30. And the presentation was from TDOT under design deliverables. And so we'll strike that from this portion of the agenda. And we'll need to make, obviously, a motion in that regard. And then we'll strike that. And then we'll just take our application reviews and then our NCWS items. And I believe, James, are you online?
I am.
Great. And of course, we're still pending one seat for engineer in Middle Tennessee. So until we fill that, it looks like we'll just go through the roll, and everyone appears to be here. So for the roll, James Collins.
Here.
Jason Carter.
Here.
And then Jason Carter is going to be filling in for James in his absence. So I guess if you want to call it to order, make it official. Yeah, go ahead and nail it. So now we're official. So you can tell he's drunk with power. We're never going to get him off that horse now. So we got James, Jason Carter, Alton Heathcote.
Here.
Eddie Jett.
Here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if there's 4 on.
Here.
And then Dr. Ash.
Here.
Chair, our pseudo chair, acting chair, interim chair. We have quorum, so I believe we can move on with that. So first thing we'll need to do then is just adjust the agenda. We'll just need a motion in that regard, striking design deliverables.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Heathcote, second from Dr. El Sayed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? All right. And if you're opposed, I guess you'd have to be giving the design deliverables since TDOT isn't here. So, but we made it official. So, all right. So the first thing we've got is application reviews. I don't, unless y'all need me to, I don't intend to go deep dive on each of these. There's a lot of similarities. Each one is, of course, has its own differences based on its own merits. You've read that, you know what that is. But there's a larger question or philosophical decision that needs to be discussed, and we'll discuss at the end after the applications. But just want to introduce that. One of the things that might be helpful would just get some general parameters when it comes to prior discipline. Such as if the discipline is older than 5 years and they are reinstated or maintain an active license in that same jurisdiction, such as most of these do, all of these maintain a license in that jurisdiction and have cleared and met the responsibility of that order. But then also 5 years, I just add one more rung to that. I would want at the end, if the committee would be willing to consider, then if they have they fulfilled their order, they've completed their order. They maintain active license in that jurisdiction for which they received the order to begin with, and it's older than 5 years. So that's a lot of stuff. But then, in that case, they could just forward their application. They're still getting approved by the 2 members, and so they still have to meet all the 3-legged stool and all of that. But instead of us bringing each of these with 18,000 engineers, there's a lot of exposure potentially. So we just wanted an efficient administrative way to expedite these as they come up. And so with that said, we'll do that at the end. We have 4 in front of you that I think one of them may be inside 5 years, but all of them have fulfilled their orders and have maintained an active license in that jurisdiction. The first one is James Arthur. The complaint was found to have testified at a rulemaking hearing for a third party without disclosing that fact. This went against Wyoming conduct laws and their ethics laws. And the conclusion was he ended up with a $2,000 fine and a class. Mitigating factors are he's an applicant. He maintains his Wyoming license, has no further reported violations in any other jurisdiction, and he holds licenses in 34 states. Again, we don't have his application in front of you because that'll come separately to the 2 engineers later. We're not looking at his requirements here. We're just saying, would you be comfortable allowing him to proceed in the application process? So somebody with that background, as I've noted, and of course their disciplinary action order, their consent orders Their executed consent orders are in your file, along with any notes that they provided as well.
I'd just make the general comment or question. Our state legislature a couple years ago passed the Fresh Start, wasn't that the name of it, Act, which basically said if somebody's committed and I know it was criminal, but if somebody's committed a crime, they've done their time, that boards like this should not consider that a factor in licensure. Correct?
That's correct, and none of these people fall under Fresh Start.
Right.
Fresh Start was a felony, and of course, I'll yield to legal if they want to. If I get into any sort of legal blasphemy or anything, they can sort of set me straight. But generally speaking, it's if it's a felony, and it's directly tied to the industry too. If it's an unrelated felony, has nothing to do with the industry, then. Yeah.
I guess my point with that was, to me, the intent of that is to, similar to this, if someone has done something and paid the penalty, whatever that penalty was.
We have precedent for that, too, that I can remember specifically, where individuals who were licensed lost their license as a result of a criminal act, and ultimately both applied for reinstatement, and this board approved the reinstatement.
Yeah, and I appreciate the context too. That's helpful. I know we've done that in the past, but with of course we've had James and Eddie and Dr. Ash roll on, and Mr. Carter as well, and so it just felt like a good time to have that discussion again with a relatively new committee. So I'm grateful to do that, and it's so good to have that context too, because you want to make sure you're not like out of the pocket or outside the industry norms.
And I would like to add that when it's about professional conduct, when it's about professional conduct, it's one thing, but one of these applications was about some tax issues in specific states. That has nothing to do with him as an engineer, in my opinion. So that, at least that probably will looked at, in my opinion, a little bit more favorably compared to the others.
And that was the other thing too. That's why the criteria, I just didn't pull that out of thin air. The criteria being over 5 years, meaning they've got a track record now that you can look at of no disciplinary action. But also the jurisdiction themselves, who has all the details, has the case file. If they've said you can still work here, to me that lends itself, yeah, right. And so it just seemed like, and that's why I limited to that. Anything outside of that pocket, then we'll come here and talk about all that. But something within that pocket, and these 4 fall underneath that, or I think one of them was in 5 years. But I would just say as a general rule of thumb, if they meet that rubric, then would we be willing to consider that? And let me just finish. I'll go ahead and read the other 3 too, to give them sort of a synopsis of those. And then if unless you have any problem with those, then we can make the bigger decision of whether or not we want to do that. Okay, so 2, the other one was Sarah Hudson. She declared that she was disciplined in Illinois for failure to file or pay Illinois state income taxes. That was one you were talking about, Dr. Ash. Given that this is a matter unrelated to engineering, we were not sure if this is something that the board would want to review. However, since it's still within your purview, we can't make that decision for ourselves. So here it is. We want to make sure we get clear lines of direction from the board itself with the authority. She was restored and is in active status. Let's see. The other one was Todd Hay. New Jersey is the state. The incident happened 2007. So we're talking. It's got some legs on that one. It looks like he prepared plans that did not rely on a signed and sealed survey of the property. According to the document, the applicant used topographic information provided by a firm, not a licensed land surveyor, and a tax map. Viewed as a misconduct violation, he was formally reprimanded with a fine. But he was restored. He fulfilled his obligation there. Has no further violations since then. Holds license in 8 states, to include New Jersey. So that's that one. And then the last one was Thomas Baumann. Oregon, 2019 was when that one was. And 5 occasions, the applicant provides structural engineering services while not being licensed to do so. He had a PE license, not a SE license. They delineate that. We've talked about that before. Not everyone does it like us. But because of that, And then there's some violations that they quoted there. I won't quote those since we're not in Oregon. But the conclusion was a temporary suspension and a fine, no other discipline, and he was reinstated there. His license was reinstated in Oregon. So those are all 4 of them. Unless there's a particular one you want to talk about, we can take up the question about parameters. I'll just yield to the board or the committee in that.
To me, the most severe one was about the misrepresentation, because that can have substantial impact. But still, it's been more than 5 years, and he's, reinstated in his own state where this incident happened. So it's just a different level of violations. So.
Okay. I'll tell you what I will do then. I'll just I'll throw out a motion if somebody wants to run with that. Then if we get a second, then we'll have further discussion. If no further discussion, then we'll just vote. Does that sound okay with the board? Okay. So the motion would be, let me get it myself to make sure I get it right, that any applications with prior discipline in other jurisdictions with discipline older than 5 years that maintain or have been reinstated and maintain an active license in that same jurisdiction. In that regard, then we just move their application on towards application review by the engineer members, and without bringing before a committee. If that works with somebody, we'll see a motion in that regard.
I do have a quick question. What happens if they're reinstated before 5 years?
No, it's just the discipline itself, the incident. So if they they can get reinstated whenever. But yeah, it would. So you're talking about don't have an active license?
No. I think in the scenario that you just presented, they had an active license, that they lost that, but ultimately gained it back. You had the stipulation that after 5 years, but is
Look at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the 5 years is about the incident, not about the registration.
Yeah, what we're saying is like the disciplinary action itself was that older than 5 years. The incident the conduct that was brought before their jurisdiction is that older than 5 years. If that is older than 5 years and they maintain an active license, then we just bypass committee. It's still going before
But
the
if it's
review.
less than 5 years or more than 5 years, if it's 5 years or more, we just reinstate it. If it's less than 5 years, then we would
Yeah,
evaluate it.
if it's older than 5 years, then we just move the application on. If it's less than 5 years, the disciplinary action, or they don't have an active license, then
It would come before
Yep.
review by the board.
Yep, and then you do a committee review.
Which would be great, but I think maybe we want to stipulate that in whatever motion we make.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
All right, we got a motion then from Mountain in that regard. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Dr. Ash. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, okay. So we got one opposed and then 4 ayes. All right, let the record reflect that, and then we'll just bring that before. Well, we don't need to bring that for the board. Majority that motion passes since that's a committee decision. It's not a full board decision. And all right, so we're ready for our next item. All right, our next item is NCWS Southern Zone meeting, and the first item. There's only really a couple of them. Really, the main item was, and if it's strictly just so you guys know, I appreciate the due diligence, and it doesn't mean that we don't have to bring it before, but if it's just association business doesn't necessarily have to come before the board. If it has any implications towards, our regulatory scope, then certainly. But it's also good since we're already here just to do that. So there's nothing wrong with that either. So take that with what you will. But if you can deliberate, at your associations when it's just strictly association business or, on your own. But when it's board business, obviously, then that always has to be, due to sunset, has to be in a board forum. But other than that, association, where it's clearly defined, such as officers or, things of that nature, then you could do that in private. But nonetheless, I think it's great, and so I'm glad. And of course, NCAAS they maintain a record of that as well. So it's not like this is done in the closet. Anybody in public that wanted to see that can see how everyone voted and where what the results of that were in those associations. But none of those association decisions are binding until they become law or rule. All right. So with that said, I just got to give out the disclaimer. Let's talk about officers now. I don't know how Jimmy managed it, but he's running unopposed. So kudos to Jimmy on that for that front. I think he would be a hard one to run against. That's probably what it is, just the force of nature he is. You guys that met him, he'll be a good Southern Zone vice president. So I don't, it'll be nice to have him in that role. So the only one that's contested is Southern Zone assistant vice president, and then you have Sina Najad and Stephen Twett. And you got their resumes, and so that's just that was obviously your decision. So you guys discuss among yourself.
If it's okay, I'll start. I did review the resumes in depth. I don't know or haven't met either one of these candidates, but just based on the resume information and data that they presented, Mr. Najad seems to have a tremendous amount of not only experience, but also with NCAAS, but also locally, and is involved in a number of different agencies and organizations. And I would probably like to recommend him for that position.
I agree. I reviewed this, and he stands out. There's no doubt about it.
Boy, you guys are just too agreeable today. I'm slipping everything I can
We
possibly.
don't have James's.
Uh-oh. James, any thoughts about that? You've got a captive audience here.
Yeah. So, I did have a chance to meet and talk with Mr. Najad at the Southern Zone meeting last year, as well as the full meeting in August, and I agree he would be a very good candidate. I think he's got a good handle on all the issues that we're dealing with, and I think would be a good candidate.
Great. We'll just need that in the form of a motion. We got a motion from Mountain. We have a second. Got a second from Mr. Jett. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So Najad then, right? Just want to make sure I get it right. And then Jason, you've got to be taking good notes over there. You're giving the committee report. So, or I guess James can fill in for you too. Either way, since he's online. All right. So while we're at it, we're talking about NCAAS business. We do have something NCAAS item in the full board meeting, so might as well just cover that as well. The national meeting in New Orleans. I've got to report who the funded delegates are by May 1st. And so this is our last meeting before then, so we need to kind of hammer that out. Like, who are our three that will be NCAAS funded, and then the remaining two obviously could be state funded.
I'll start with, this may clarify things. I had it on my calendar anyway, assuming that all of us would go, and I think my wife is wanting to go with me, so we may stay a couple of extra days. So that might make more sense for me to be state funded, because that might complicate.
Oh, actually,
NCAAS and the hotel and all
it's
that.
actually easier through NCAAS because they just give you one stipend. So if you're have something like that, NCAAS funded would be easier because they cut you like the stipend check, and then they schedule that they can add on. By the way,
Also, I think when you fill out the application, they ask you if your spouse is coming,
Yep.
and if she's going to attend the spouses meetings or
Yep.
go on the tours or things like that.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
That's great. I've taken my wife as well, and they. And obviously, if you stay a couple extra days, that's on you, and they know that. They give you the standard 3 days for the meeting, and that's it. And that, which is fine. I mean, that's all we wanted, and that's all you needed. So, that's not a problem. And all people travel all the time with their spouses.
Right.
So I would recommend then Mr. Carter being one of the NCAAS funded, and whoever else as well. That we're just thinking in practical sense. Whatever, if there's any arrangement that y'all have, those probably our NCAAS funded.
since both, I think James, Eddie, and Dr. Ash are all going, that were part of the Southern Zone, right? So
Yep.
any one of those.
We're all going to the Southern Zone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Little Rock, Little Small.
So pick
James, do you have a preference, state or NCAAS funded?
I don't. I don't think I'm going to be doing anything as part of the committee that I'm on at the
Right.
national meeting. But yeah, I'm good either way.
When is
hold on.
that meeting? When is the national
Yeah,
meeting
that is August 19th to the 22nd. And another thing to you, those that are more inclined to go, that you're more sure about, those are the ones I would make NCAAS funded as well. So if you're like, I've moved that, and that's happening, short of some infirmity or something, I'm going to that, then that would be your person to go as well, to be NCAAS funded.
So it sounds like James was
Yeah.
planning on going too.
Yeah, I
right?
think so. So James and Jason would probably be the NCAAS funded for right now. Anybody else? So it's one of you three over there.
Well, James is on committee, and I know he may not be active, but anybody that's on the committee probably ought to be NCAAS
Yeah.
funded.
I'm on a committee, but that committee has never contacted me for over anything.
Well, hey, just in case
I don't know how accurate.
the word's out, Dr.
I
Ash.
make a motion that James, Jason, and Dr. Ash
Yeah, that
be
makes
the
sense.
NCAAS
Yeah.
representatives.
Do we have a second in that regard?
Second.
We got a second from Eddie Jett. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none. That'll be, I guess, James or Jason, whoever's given the committee report in the full board meeting. James, will you be on the line?
I will.
All right. If you want to give that report, you can just give those, present those results then, or for that vote.
Okay.
All right. I think that's all of our business. Is there any new business? And we won't adjourn because it's a continuous meeting in keeping with the public comments requirement. But do we, any new business? All right. Well, then we'll, Mr. Carter, if it be your pleasure, we'll just recess and then return at 10:30. All right. Yeah, that's your gavel if you want to get after it. This meeting is officially. All right, looks like it is 10:30 and everyone's kind of making their way to their seat, getting settled in. Good to see everybody. It was you should those of you that weren't here for the didn't have the pleasure of being here for the engineering committee. You should have seen Dr. Ash. I mean, he really demonstrated a level of commitment I have yet to see. He came in here pretty well swamped. He had a swirly. I didn't know what, when he walked in, but he went right to the business. So we appreciate you. Yeah, I'll tell you what, the review on Amazon's going to be, pretty robust. All right. So if we can, Chair, we're ready to call to order, if you would.
Call to order the April meeting of the Board of Architectural and Engineering Examiners.
All right, great. Also, just a reminder, there's a notice of public comment period that's located at the end of the agenda. And so when we, right before we adjourn, we'll give an opportunity for the public to make any comments should they so choose. And that can be done virtually or physically present. So we'll pause, check the sign-in sheet, and we'll also see if anyone's signed in and give them an opportunity for about 3 or 5 minutes to address the board for any items on the agenda. So, but just our friendly reminder on that front, the meeting notice of the April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Board of Architectural Engineering Examiners has been noticed on the website since December 18th, 2024. This month's agenda was posted on March 27th, 2025. And then before we get to announcements, before we get to whatever announcements that the general board may have, I want to pause for a second to introduce our new attorney, and I'll let Miss Martin do that.
Good morning. So sitting to my right is a new attorney with our department. His name is Scott Huddleston, and he joined us just last week, so he's really just being introduced today. Scott comes to us from Child Support Services and has some experience in litigation and negotiation, and he also has a background in engineering, which we thought would be super helpful on this board. So you'll be seeing a lot more of him. You'll still be seeing me and Ariel, at least for a little bit, as we help transition him onto this board. And then I will also still continue to be your chief counsel. But yeah, if you didn't get a chance during the last break, please take a moment and introduce yourself to Scott. So thank you.
Thank you. And while I'm at it, maybe I should call roll. I don't believe we did that, did we? So maybe we'll do that. So yeah. Melanie Doss,
Present.
Rick Thomas, Brian Tibbs, Frank Wagster,
Here.
Dr. Ash El Sayed, Jason Carter,
Here.
Jeff Nally,
Here.
Blair Parker. Alton oh, good. All right. Alton Heathcote,
Howdy.
Eddie Jett,
Here.
and James Collins. So, Chair, we do have
Here.
quorum. Thank you, guys. And then for those of you that, although you're not able to participate in quorum, we sure appreciate you joining and participating. Your contribution is invaluable. So thank you, Blair and James, for being able to do that. Unfortunately for Mr. Tibbs, he has a swimming pool somewhere in the basement of his house. So he's working at that, unfortunately for him. So your thoughts be with him as everyone's safe, everyone's fine. It's just, one of those things with the weather moving in like you did. So thank you all for your sacrifice and being here today as well. All right, so we'll just need to adopt the agenda.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Got a motion from Melanie Doss, a second from Dr. Ash. Do we all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none. That was approved. All right, the approval of the meeting minutes, February 6, 2025. That's in front of you as well. I'll let you take a moment to review that. And then if there's no edits, we'll just need a motion in that regard.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion from Ms. Doss, a second from Frank Wagster. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, professional society reports. Let me go through our list. Ms. Anderson. Okay, Ms. Anderson, are you online? Suzanne Herron. Ashley Cates. I wasn't expecting a robust representation of our professional society reports, given what I saw on the Doppler this morning. Nathan Ridley. Hannah Finch.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yay. All right. Miss Finch, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be presenting for both ASID and IDA, but we do have Allie on for IDA as well joining us. So we'll have more, obviously, representation when we don't have any storms present. So, but I'll just give a quick overview of each and then dive into our joint report. So for ASID, we recently had our third annual outdoor living event. That was February 20th at Ferguson's new location in Mount Juliet. And we had some great feedback on hosting a meeting on that side of town. So we may continue to do that. I know a lot kind of get lost in the downtown area. So the only hiccup on that was that it happened during one of the biggest snowstorms. So we did lose some attendance. So we're going to look at maybe later spring for next year on that event. But continue to have additional industry events, including some CEUs with our annual sponsors, and that's across both Nashville and Chattanooga areas. We did have an industry panel discussion with our students at UTK scheduled for this Saturday, but it is being postponed to the fall due to some other student conflicts. So we want to work with our school schedules, obviously, so we provide them with the best resources and achieve some higher attendance there. But we did have that request to have some more student participation at the school level. Our annual industry partner appreciation party is set for June 26th at Walk Your Plans, where we will project virtual live action games like Clue and much more. So it should be a fun time. But if you're not familiar with Walk Your Plans, that's basically where you can upload a set of drawings and actually have a client walk through with you in real time. So it's a pretty cool tool for us as interior designers, but also going to have some fun there too. We did extend our sponsorship deadline for industry partners through April 10th. it seems like we have more and more hopping on than we have before. And so far we have the highest income of sponsorship to date for any of our past years. So great there. That allows us to obviously spend some more money on efforts like advocacy and students. So we're excited about that. Our state conference programming is almost complete. This is a design awards year for us. So that ceremony will happen on Thursday, September 18th at Riverside Revival. And then we'll have a student panel discussion and portfolio review to follow the next day at MTSU. And this also marks ASID's 50th anniversary. So we are presenting a Golden Gala with the theme of celebrating the past, honoring the present, and inspiring the future. So very excited about that. And along with the 50th anniversary, the national, basically our leadership conference, along with membership for all of ASID National, is happening in Atlanta this year. So our board plans to go since that's drivable, get some great leadership. And of course, they're also celebrating that 50th anniversary there as well. So that kind of wraps up for ASID. For IDA, for under continuing education, monthly CEUs, just like us as well, are in full swing. They're prioritizing HSW, health, safety, and welfare credits to provide maximum value to our members. And very exciting news, IDA Tennessee has been awarded the 2025 Catalyst Grant from headquarters to support our professional development symposium, and they're calling that Rise and Refine. So exciting news there. Board updates, the 2025 to 26 board slate will be ratified this month. A heartfelt thank you to the outgoing board members for their dedication, and of course, always appreciate the service. For student news, graduation cords are on their way to the student members across the state. Congratulations to the soon-be graduates. And I will add for ASID as well, we're working on that for cords as well. So I can't wait to see some pictures with them sporting that with their cap and gown. And for City Center events in East Tennessee, this month in Knoxville, they'll have an event with Rose Engineering, focusing on the coordination between interior designers and MEP engineers and project planning. And Memphis, hosting a Toast and Tour on April 15th, where designers will get an exclusive look inside the newly renovated Steric building while enjoying a celebratory toast. And in Nashville, an interior design trivia night is coming in May. This CEU accredited event will test your knowledge on NCIDQ, local and national codes, advocacy, and more. So definitely don't miss out on that. And a save the date, the 2025 Threads event is set for September 25th. So stay tuned for more details. It's always a fun event. And then finally finishing with our joint updates with ASID and IDA. First and foremost, happy NCIDQ testing month. We are wishing all exam takers the best of luck as they work towards certification. And then we did just have our third annual advocacy symposium that was held at Hastings Architecture on March 21st. It was a great success with updates from our national representatives at CIDQ, ASID, and IDA. And that was followed by a panel discussion with professionals from a variety of design backgrounds, including Susan Ballard-Gribble of SK Ballard Contract Interiors, Laura Wessels of Facet Design, Kate O'Neill of Hastings Architecture, and Joseph Cole of Culture, Architecture, and Design. And topics range from how becoming a registered interior designer impacts your business to the importance of interior design and architecture working in conjunction with each other on a project. We did end that event with an informative presentation on registration and CEU 101, and then a happy hour networking time where we were able to answer questions from the audience. So we do plan to continue these events biannually, so we'll update on a date and location for our next event targeting October, and we will kind of have a follow-up and more programming details to come on our meetings. And I will say at both ASID and IDA events that we've had recently, we've had the most active participation in wanting to hear advocacy updates than we ever have before. So our committee is growing. We're really excited about that. And with that, I will end it for interior design.
Thank you, Hannah. And,
Hannah, if I can, thank you very much for the
Please.
report. And also thank you all from the professional organizations for all you do to support the profession of interior design. So thanks again.
Thanks, Melanie.
Any other comments from the board? All right, hearing none. All right, thank you, Hannah. Appreciate you. All right, I don't think there's anyone else left on the professional society reports. I'll pause for a second just in case I missed somebody or somebody came in. Do we have anyone that signed in there, Alex? No. Okay. All right. I think we're free to move on to the director's report. Just one item informational, then one action item, the budget report. You have the budget there in front of you. Per usual, instead of going line by line, I try to just give you the big picture and then pick out anything that I think might just stand out to me. And then if you have anything, of course, feel free to throw that at me afterwards. During our last review, we reviewed financial reporting through December. So we currently have 2 more months of record. January and February is primarily where I'll be focused at this time, since we already covered up through December. I did see an uptick in Edison expenses under other due to NCARB Region 3, NCWS, and CIDQ membership dues in January. So that's where you got your, and that's pretty common. January, beginning of the term, we're gonna pay a lot of that stuff out. There's some terms that are midterm or mid calendar year, but most of our big ones come about in January. So we cleared those then. And of course, the grants contracts in February, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Anytime you spend $400,000 in 1 month, it's gonna reflect. So that's the only, usually the month that we run at a deficit, unless there's something else like a core expense or something unforeseen like that, or some contractual obligation. Other than that, that is our only contractual obligation at that price point. Hence the deficit for that month. But we're still running in surplus. So grateful for that. There was a reallocation in January under investigations. I looked at that, and apparently there was an amount deposited from each of the programs, their share of a basically overhead for investigations, but we did not use as much as some of the other programs, so proportionally that was reallocated back to us. So now there's things that investigation are specific to the program. If we call them to go do service for for some agreed citation, or we're trying to get service for a formal hearing or something, and we may use a service trying to get an address, or we may use them in that regard, and then that's going to be billed directly to us. But then there's shared services that they provide across the board, and that just trickle down to all the programs. And apparently, since we weren't using them as quite as you can imagine, we're not with our case count compared to maybe Cosmo and Barber or one of those others, Motor V, Trek. Those programs are going to use them a lot more, and so their share is going to be a little bit more. So we got a reallocation for that. Not a whole lot, but it's we appreciate the boost. Other than that, I didn't see anything else that jumped out at me. Of course, if you did, then by all means, let me know. But we're still tracking in surplus of $78,000, adding to our overall reserves. And $78,000 is, given the size of this program, is pretty good. It's not, we're not just far outpacing to the point where we're just heaping onto our reserves. So that's really good. Any questions, comments? That's the informational portion. All right. Hearing none, then we'll move on to the 2025 NCWS annual meeting. That will be in New Orleans, and that is August 19th through the 22nd. We'll need a motion to send all 5 members. 3 of them will be NCWS funded, and those members will be Mr. Carter, Dr. El Sayed, and Mr. Collins. And then the other 2, our other 2 engineers will be state funded. So we just need a motion in that regard.
Also move.
So moved.
We got a motion from
Second.
Frank, and we got a second from Rick Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unless it's an architect. All right, no, but we got them on the record, so they've made the motions. All right, thank you. That one's approved. We can move on then to legal.
Sorry, good morning. So for the legal report, we have 3 cases. The first one is 2024-067291. In this one, the complainant is a Tennessee resident. The respondent's license expired October 2024. But at the time of the incidents alleged, the respondent was licensed. Around October 2022, the complainant purchased an investment property with their wife, and the respondent offered their insight on the property as an architect. On December 7th, 2024, the respondent requested payment of over $14,000 for the work completed in 2022, and say that they would pursue legal actions related to copyright infringement unless paid. The complainant stated that they believed the respondent was performing the services out of goodwill and never received an invoice prior to the request for payment. The complainant alleged that the respondent's actions are illegal and violate the professional code of ethics. The respondent stated that the complainant asked them to provide professional recommendation and services for an investment property that they intended to purchase. The respondent drove from New Jersey to Tennessee. They stated that they did field measured the structures, documented and modeled the structures. They presented the drawing records and a few schematic designs for proposed renovations, which noted that it was the respondent's intellectual property. They stated that they were under the impression that the complainant was not purchasing the investment property because they were in the middle of a divorce. However, they learned that the complainant purchased the property and had construction done using the work that they performed and delivered. And after based on the review of the information provided, it was determined there was no violation of the board's professional code of ethics. The matters related to alleged criminal conduct and copyright infringement are better suited for other courts, not the board. And so it's recommended that this matter be closed.
I move that the matter be closed.
Got a motion from Mr. Thompson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second from Ms. Doss. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that was approved.
All right, thank you. The second one is case number 2024-068151. This is an administratively opened complaint. The respondent is a registered engineer. On the respondent's application, they entered yes to practicing while their while license was expired. The respondent stated that they are licensed in 11 other states, and while their license was expired, they provided weekly construction observation reports to an engineering firm for a local project in Tennessee, and provided ad hoc services to an out-of-state firm. The respondent stated that they did not sign or stamp any document or act as the lead engineer on any project in Tennessee during the license lapse period. It was recommended that a letter of caution be issued to the respondent and require them to take and pass the laws and rules exam. And the proposed recommendation is based on the fact that it appears the respondent was not doing any significant work in Tennessee, which required the use of seal. Respondent was not serving as a lead engineer, engineer of record, or engineer in charge for any project. The respondent's immediate action to restore their license and the cooperation with the board, along with no prior violations.
I'd like to move that we issue a letter of caution and require that the respondent to take and pass the laws and rules exam.
We have a motion from Mr. Waxer. Do we have a second? Second. Got a second from Dr. El Sayed. I guess all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that one was approved.
And the last one is case 2024-062571. The complaint was administratively opened by the board. The respondent was selected for a routine audit and was informed that they had 90 days to support the continuing education claimed for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2024. The respondent did not comply with the request for additional information or submit a response. Under the Tennessee rules and regulations, they're required to maintain continuing education for a period of 4 years and provide the records to the board for audit verification purposes within 30 days of the board's request. Here, the respondent did not provide proof of their continued education for the audit period requested, and it was recommended that the respondent be assessed a civil penalty of $500 for failing to comply with Tennessee rules and regulations 0120-02, subsection 4. And then also it's recommended that required the respondent to submit records of their education that was requested for that audit period within 30 days of receiving the consent order, and also to require the respondent to take and pass the rules and laws exam.
Ariel, quick question. Normally when we do that, don't we issue a letter of instruction instructing them to do exactly, that's the methodology I think we use to require them to do that?
Normally for instructing them to do things, yes, but since this one's also a recommendation of a civil penalty, it can be incorporated in a consent order that way
Okay.
as well.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, this person has not yet to respond to the board?
They, at some point, I think, responded, but they didn't give the requested education for that time period that the auditors
And they
told them to
haven't,
do.
they haven't provided that so far?
They did not provide that. They did not provide that response, even after asking for it.
So are we, if we go with the civil penalty now, are we assessing that again? And if he hasn't still not respond, or that would be it in terms of our response to him, to her?
I believe it could give rise to an additional cause of action. So in this consent order, we kind of give it a time limit of 30 days to respond and give us this education that we've asked for in the audit. And so if they don't do that, then I believe we can bring this back as a represent and say that they didn't respond to a lawful request by the board.
I'm assuming that's what we would do if they don't respond.
Yes, so like they didn't want to do the civil penalty or any part of the consent order that we're proposing to them, then we could probably represent it and either do a formal charges or.
So they would be required to respond and provide the information as requested. And if not, are we going to leave the $500 penalty in this? Or are we going to take that out and reserve the right to assess a different penalty?
I believe if they refuse to do all of what we requested, we could change the civil penalty. I think the max is $1,000. And then we can add an additional violation for failing to respond.
Okay, yeah, just process.
Yeah, and also a formal hearing is also on the table.
Yeah, I think the question, and perhaps, and let me know if I'm wrong, is just basically that this isn't the end of it. No, there is a process, so it continues to escalate until they respond. And responding isn't just, yeah, I got it. It's responding within 30 days by complying with the order and their signature indicating such as well. So it would be an executed consent order at that point. And if they fail to do that, then it can be represented.
Okay. Would that be an additional violation where, I heard you say the maximum is $1,000, but $500 for this, they don't respond again. Is that a violation of something we can make it $5,000?
Yeah.
Yes, the max is $1,000 per violation. So if they,
Would that be
for some reason,
another
didn't comply
violation?
with the request for them to respond within 30 days for that, then we can represent it. And it can be $1,000 for the first violation of failing to comply, and then a second violation, because it'd be two different instances of it. So it could be higher.
So it would be, the first violation, the way this is written, would be $500. $5,000. But if it comes back to us, it could be an additional $1,000 is what I'm asking.
Well, it's $500 now, but it can be an additional up to $1,000, yes. Like for a second violation
Sounds
of
like
it.
two violations.
It could be two separate violations.
But we could amend the original
Yes.
500 to 1,000.
Correct, yes,
And then
you can-
apply another 1,000.
Correct, yes. So
For-
it'd probably be
for-
a $2,000 violation.
For each violation we can do, in the event they don't comply again, that would be
Yes.
3 violations.
We probably go to a formal hearing at that point, but
All right.
but yes, in theory, and I think
Harold,
Yeah.
real quickly,
Yes.
have they indicated that they have access or don't have access to their continuing education information?
they just didn't respond. It was requested. Essentially, they sent in a couple education during the audit period. They were told it was not the correct continuing education that they needed, and then when we sent the complaint out, they just didn't respond or provide anything additional. So
Jim's not-
usually people respond a little bit better when they get a consent order that's telling them to pay some money,
Yeah.
but I won't know until that kind of goes out.
We typically do get a better response. Obviously Ariel knows better than anybody. She works outside the shop, but good example is I've had an attorney just write a letter, not even a consent order with all that scary language in there, and Yeah, and they'll ghost me, all day long, and as soon as they get that letter, they'll get a call immediately with everything that I asked for, and I'm like, well, you had it in your pocket you're walking around with your insurance and whatever, but anyway, sorry I blacked out for a second, but yeah, that does happen. So I can imagine with a consent order, obviously, it kind of raised the bar. Yeah.
I have a question. So I know we use that action a lot of times with asking them to take and pass the rules and laws exam. I assume once they do that, they send something in, but we never put a time frame on it. How much time is it in a letter they get? Do they have a certain amount of time to do that?
For them to close out that consent order, that has to be fulfilled. So, like, I sign off on those along with our attorneys, and I'll grade the exam. And so I'll look at the terms. They'll send me, typically Chris, sitting right behind me, he's collecting all the information. He'll send me the laws and rules exam. I'll grade it if they pass. I'll marry that up with the payment, and then I'll look and see if there's any other requirements in there. If it's CE, they'll verify that. So they have to meet all the qualifications before that gets closed out.
But what's the time frame? Is it like a year they have to get that done?
Well, whatever the time frame is in the order, it would have. So if it's a 90-day time, typically it's like 60 to 90 days or something to that effect. It's not a year, but it's. Yeah, but you can. That's certainly part of it. That we can change those agreed citations to however you want to do that. They're usually pretty motivated to get it done sooner than later. So they, we have. It doesn't age. If it's a reasonable fine and the exam isn't, I mean, it's more of a nuisance to them than anything else. It's not like they're going to have to they're not trying to pass the bar. You know what I mean? So they usually set the time aside so they can kind of get it off their plate. So we don't typically wait that long. I haven't seen any situation where I've seen an age past, a few months tops. Yeah.
Glenn, this is an informational question, but do you have many that don't pass it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, you got to get in there. I mean, it's open book. I mean, pull out the rules and the, laws, but you got to do that. We have some folks, I guess they think they're going to wing it, and then I've seen some, I get into it, I'm like, oh boy, you see where that's going. The thing is just bleeding red, but yeah, anyway, so yes, that does happen. Oh, do we have a question? Oh, Blair.
Blair
please.
had a question.
Thank you all. I didn't see the screen.
Thank you all. I'm curious about the laws and rules exam, about how often it's reviewed. And Glenn, I'm now hearing that you actually grade these. And so what I'm really curious about is, when was it initiated? And maybe secondly, how often do we go back and re-review that exam? Because as we change our rules along the way, I'm assuming that you as staff or legal, that you are making the adjustments to that exam. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, the questions are pretty general. They're not as nuanced as you would expect, because we're not talking about, it's not a deep dive. But yes, if there's any part of the exam that's been altered or changed, then certainly legal review that. And two, I mean, you can oftentimes tell by the exam scores if a particular question is problematic. So we would look at that question as well. But so far it's we haven't had too much pushback on our exam at this point anyway.
Thank you.
This is another silly question, I guess, but are there more than one version?
Hey.
Hey, you still talking?
Yeah, I thought we blocked it.
Are you saying my question's silly?
Yeah.
I'm poking at you, Frank.
Yeah, I thought we blocked that number. Sorry about that, Frank.
No, are there different versions so somebody could take it and then tell somebody, hey, you need to know this?
Yeah, I mean,
Any of that?
Well, we don't tell them which ones they passed or didn't pass. They just get a score.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it'd be a little bit more difficult in that regard. Yeah.
Okay.
And quite honestly, in the immortal words of Mr. Campbell, it's really more of a nuisance than anything else to have to take the exam. That's kind of why it's done. We're not looking for entrance into a profession. You know what I mean? It's really just hey, slow down, and this is what the rules and the laws say, because that's the end result. We just want them to look at the rules and laws and And that's the purpose of the exam, is to sort of a slap on the wrist, like, you know, you're working here, you're subject to this, maybe you should know something about it, you know, and the only way to do that, you know, you take a LinkedIn course, the only way to make sure you took that course if you pass those little questions along the way, same kind of thing. So we're not looking for necessarily to block anyone or bar entry, or it's not a, you know, an industry entrance exam. And so that being not the purpose, you know, we're just trying to direct them back to the rules and laws. And obviously there's, you know, and that's also, the board is on some level is assuming that it was by ignorance that they made some mistakes, you know, and so, you know, we're by acting in good faith and doing our due diligence to point them back to our rules and laws. Yep.
So you're saying this is a paper exam?
It is, well, yeah, Chris could wax more eloquent on that than I do, but what I see is the paper, yes. That's the version I get, yep.
So we can't, why would this not be automated? Be like an online, they click a link, sign in, do it
Yeah,
automatic?
we just wouldn't pay for it, that's why. I mean, I'm not saying we couldn't, it'd have to be contracted. Like, you know, you go in, well, yeah, and PSI could do that, but what I would say is you go that route for something that's more routine, what you're going to do, that incurs quite an expense, because you have just a review cost, basically like a retainer. And if you're only getting about 4 or 5 per quarter, you are spending a lot of money to do that. A good example is the land surveyors. They have 1,400 licensees, and we were looking at just having maybe, I would say maybe 50 exams or something like that. And that's their industry entrance exam. Like, that's the one we need that one. You know, like that's not just that's their Tennessee specific exam, and we need that exam. And so, and it's a robust exam. And even that exam, we had to package it with some of our other programs to get them to accept that. So not anybody and everybody can do that. And if they can do it, it's really expensive. And then it's a competitive process. So, and when the ultimate result and purpose is to basically point them to our rules and laws. Keep in mind, 2 other programs don't even have a laws and rules exams. None of my programs have that. That's unique to this program.
I was thinking that since it's not a licensing exam, it's essentially just an informative brush up, make sure you're aware of these things. I would think that would be easily solvable technologically and shouldn't be expensive, but you may be aware of some nuances there that I'm not, but I would think, you know, there's a lot of simple forms out there. I think that could be.
No, it's a reasonable expectation, Jeff. And I mean, you know, if I was sitting in your seat, I would think the exact same thing. And you know, that's linear, logical, but as you know, with the bureaucracies as they work sometimes, you know, especially when you have multiple layers of accountability, rightfully so, you know, but as a result, you're answering to a lot of folks. Things aren't as streamlined as you would imagine, and so there's usually a huge cost affiliated with that. I mean, you just look at CORE. There's a lot of things, and thank God for our administration. They've really been leaning on our vendors to kind of move some things along there. But there's some enhancements there that have been in the hopper for a while, and we're paying a good money for that. So to start up an online exam for as little trickle as we have, you know, that's limited to this program, it would be hard to get buy-in just at the sort of basic level. And then if you did, the cost would be prohibitive.
Do we mail or email the exam to that person and get his answers by mail or email?
I believe it's by email. Isn't that the case, Chris? Yeah. So based on whatever they need. Yeah, but it's a great question. I mean, that's been first foremost on my list, but I've got some applications that I haven't got online yet. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm kind of like, you know, it's a matter of, you know, just priorities. If I could I've got some applications that are still in paper, and so you sort of, you know, you stage those, you know, and you say, okay, well, what's the biggest hit? What's the most, you know, most impactful? And so with land surveyors, that was worth the lift, and and then we got a cost savings because we were able to bundle it. But if we weren't able to bundle it, you know, that would be paper too, and it was. So for a while, we used to proctor those. You know, we used to do that with some other exams and geologists as well. before they went, they just went and they've got a lot of money, funded by ASBOG. They're funded, well funded by their exam expenses and also by membership fees. And they didn't go CBT like, a handful of years ago. So, and that's their entrance. That's their bread and butter, So you're asking some great questions. I wish I had some better answers for you.
Yeah, I was thinking something like that is single form. I mean, you wouldn't even have to write code.
Like Form Stack or something.
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think anybody would
Mm-hmm.
just automatic grades it and
Yeah.
submits it to whatever inbox is done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you come up with some short forms or sort of out of the box, shoot it my way, and then if we can improve, we will. That sounds great. Yeah.
We haven't voted on this yet, have we?
No, I'm
I think
easily
I got
distracted.
lost in the process.
All it takes is a laser pointer, and I'm gone.
Call a motion.
Do we have a motion then for this recommendation? I got a motion from Dr. El Sayed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Frank Waxter. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that one was approved. Good discussion. Thank you all.
Along with the legal report, I just wanted to give you guys an update on the rules. It's made its way through the various people in the department who review it. As soon as the commissioner signs off with it, the governor's office will review it, and then I will start working on setting a rulemaking hearing. And I have to set those about 50, it's by statute, I have to give 54, it's 50 days of notice, but I have to do it 54 days of notice. All that to say, it will be scheduled at whatever the next regularly scheduled board meeting is that would comply with that 54 days notice. But the governor's office reviews them pretty quickly, so I'm hoping we'll be able to get working on that pretty soon. But we haven't really had any pushback, so that's moving slowly, but that is pretty standard. But it's moving. So that's what's going on with that. Thank you.
And just kudos to Laura and her team for keeping that on track. That was quite a project because we had we had one package that we in effect combined with retrospective as well, and of course got unanimous support from the board. So appreciate you guys as well, your attention and to detail and hanging in there with us, and for legal for getting that done. Anything else from legal? No, thank you. All right, we got the committee report. We only had one committee, the engineers. Our design deliverables presentation by TDOT was canceled or rescheduled till next meeting, I suspect. So we'll pick up that there. So we in effect only had two items. We had application reviews and then NCWS items. So James, if you're on the line and if you want to provide a quick update, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. So recording the application reviews, we had a discussion about applications that are received in which the applicant has had disciplinary action in another state, and how we should proceed with that application process. And after discussion, we decided to continue with the current policy of allowing those applications to proceed through the approval process if in the previous disciplinary action, the applicant had received and complied with the disciplinary order that was issued, that they've continued to maintain an active license in the jurisdiction in which they were disciplined, and it's been more than 5 years since that discipline occurred. So we decided to continue on with that policy in moving forward. Any questions about that?
I don't see any here. I don't know if I guess you probably can't see us, but if you're on the Teams meeting and don't have the live link running, but no questions here from what I can tell.
Okay. Then the other item was about the NCS Southern Zone meeting and the national meeting. We talked about the candidates for assistant vice president and agreed upon one that we wanted to support. And then also talked about which of our members would be the NCES funded delegates for the national meeting.
Great. Thank you, James. I appreciate that report. Very succinct and captured everything. Those were the high points. Anything else you want to add, or does that get it done for you?
Just sorry I can't be there today, but I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, James. All right, then looks like we're ready for new business, then public comment. So any new business? All right. Looks like then we'll move then to public comment. Do we have anyone online that's signed in? All right. Let me check physically too, just in case someone is hiding away in the podium and signed in. Let me check that. No signatures either. I mean, no one signed in either. So I believe we're free then, if it be your will, Chair, if you want to gavel us out of here.
Let the record reflect that we are adjourned at 11:13. That's 43 minutes, I believe. That's
Well
the
done.
record. Rick Thompson.
Oh my goodness, he's gonna filibuster. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.